There are moments in life when a single knock on the door changes everything. Imagine standing at the edge of a storm, both outside and inside your heart, and then someone walks into your world with a hammer in his hand and kindness in his eyes. That's exactly what happened in this story, and trust me, you'll want to stay until the very last word, because what started as a simple act of fixing a roof turned into a revelation that would forever change two lives. Before we dive deep, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's the easiest way to make sure you never miss stories that touch your heart and remind you of the power of kindness. The storm clouds had been gathering all afternoon, heavy and swollen with rain that promised to drench the little town by nightfall. People hurried about, closing shutters, securing gardens, and making sure their families would be safe inside. But in the middle of that rush, a small house sat vulnerable. Its roof had been battered by seasons of neglect and years of quiet struggle. Inside, Rose paced nervously, staring up at the ceiling where faint leaks had already begun to form. She was a woman in her early 30s, with soft eyes that carried the weight of both sorrow and resilience. Her home was all she had left after a string of losses that had hollowed out her life piece by piece. Tonight, with the storm pressing closer, she feared her fragile shelter wouldn't survive. Just down the street, Noah was loading his old pickup with tools. He wasn't the kind of man who looked for recognition. He worked quietly, fixing things for neighbors when they needed it. A carpenter by trade, a helper by nature, he noticed the way Rose stood at her window, biting her lip, looking like someone bracing for more than just rain. He didn't know her well, only that she had moved into town a year ago, kept mostly to herself, and carried an air of sadness that people respected by not asking about. But something about her loneliness stirred something in him, and without thinking too much, he grabbed his ladder and walked toward her house. When Rose opened the door, surprise flickered across her face. "Noah," she said softly, as if uncertain whether to welcome him or send him away. "The storm's coming hard," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Your roof won't hold. I've got my tools, I can fix it, at least enough to get you through tonight." She hesitated, gripping the doorframe. Trust didn't come easy for her anymore. But there was something steady in his eyes, something that didn't ask for anything in return. She nodded, stepping aside. "Thank you. I didn't know what I was going to do." He climbed the roof quickly, the sky rumbling overhead, and set to work. Each hammer strike echoed like a heartbeat against the encroaching storm. Rose watched from below, hands clasped, a strange warmth blooming in her chest. It had been so long since anyone had stepped into her life to help without asking questions. She felt both grateful and unsettled, because kindness often had a way of stirring memories she had buried deep. As he worked, Noah called down stories about storms he had lived through as a boy, about how his father had once tied down their roof with ropes while lightning split the sky. Rose listened, and for the first time in months, she smiled. Her laughter surprised her, light and fleeting, almost foreign on her lips. Noah noticed it too, though he didn't say anything, he just felt it like sunlight breaking through clouds. By the time the first drops of rain began to fall, the roof was patched, strong enough to withstand the worst of the night. Noah climbed down, wiping his hands on his jeans, just as thunder rolled across the horizon. Rose looked up at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I don't know how to thank you," she whispered. "You don't need to," he replied. "Just stay dry tonight. That's thanks enough." But Rose shook her head. Something inside her stirred, something fragile and aching. She invited him in, saying, "The least I can do is make you some tea before the rain gets worse." And so he stepped inside, crossing a threshold he didn't know would lead him into the depths of her story. The storm raged outside, pounding the windows and rattling the walls, but inside, the warmth of the kitchen softened the night. They sat at a small table, steam rising from chipped mugs, silence stretching between them until Noah finally asked, "You've been here a while, haven't you? I've seen you around but, you always seem far away." Rose looked down, tracing the rim of her cup with trembling fingers. For so long she had carried her secret in silence, afraid of the pity it would bring, afraid it would define her in the eyes of others. But tonight felt different. Maybe it was the storm, maybe it was the man who had shown up unasked, who had climbed her roof without hesitation. Whatever it was, she felt her defenses cracking. "I lost my husband 2 years ago," she said quietly, her voice breaking on the words. "Cancer. He was only 35. We had dreams, plans, everything ahead of us. And then, just like that, it was gone. I sold everything to cover the bills, ended up here, trying to start over, but I don't think I ever really did. Some days I feel like I'm just surviving, waiting for the next storm to finish what the last one started." Noah's chest tightened. He hadn't expected this, hadn't expected the hollow grief etched in her voice. "I'm so sorry, Rose," he said, his words sincere and heavy with compassion. She nodded, blinking back tears. "I don't tell people. They look at me differently when they know. Like I'm fragile, broken. I didn't want that. But tonight, when you came, I just couldn't hold it in anymore." He reached across the table, covering her hand with his calloused one. "You're not broken. You're surviving something most people can't even imagine. That doesn't make you fragile, it makes you stronger than you realize." The thunder roared outside, but in that small kitchen, a different kind of silence settled, one filled with understanding and something unspoken. Hours passed, and as the storm began to ease, Rose felt lighter than she had in years. She had shared her secret, her pain, with someone who didn't flinch, didn't turn away. Noah didn't offer empty promises or quick fixes. He simply stayed, present and steady, like the roof he had mended over her head. When morning came, the sky was clear, washed clean by the night's fury. Rose stood at her window, watching the sunlight glint off the patched roof, and she realized something profound. Sometimes, storms aren't just about destruction. They strip away the walls we build, forcing us to see who is willing to stand with us in the rain. Noah knocked lightly on the door before leaving, his tools slung over his shoulder. "If you ever need help again," he said with a gentle smile, "you know where to find me." And Rose, with tears brimming but hope rising for the first time in years, whispered, "Thank you, for fixing more than just my roof." As he walked away, the weight of her secret no longer pressed so heavily on her heart. She had learned that healing doesn't come all at once, but sometimes it begins with the simplest acts of kindness. And maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something new. Life teaches us that storms will always come, some outside, some inside, but what truly matters are the people who show up when the clouds gather, the ones who climb your roof in the rain and remind you that even in your darkest hours, you're not alone. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. By doing so, you help spread more stories of hope, resilience, and kindness to others who may need them just as much as you did today.